Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special Committee of a Whole meeting. The reason why we're having this special Committee of a Whole meeting, a couple weeks ago, we had so many people that signed up for the Zoom meeting. The council wanted us to give individual chance again to talk because of our technical difficulties. So this is a special Committee of a Whole. It's going to start from 5:30. We have a hard cutoff at 7 p.m. because we do have a council meeting tonight that we must pick up the City of Hartford business. I'm going to read a couple house cleaning things for everyone. There is a capacity of 49 people inside the council chambers. After speaking, we will ask you if you can please leave and go outside so someone else can come in. One of the things I want to make sure everybody understand is the rules tonight. So I'm going to read a little housekeeping rule. Each member who's speaking, we have 3 minutes. There is a clock that will count down when your 3 minutes is up. Councilman Gail will have the clock right in front of him. So we really are going to adhere to those 3 minutes time. And we ask that no one make any personal or impertinent or slanderous remarks or who become boisterous while addressing the council, because if that happens, we will ask you to please leave. So we are very considerate. It happened several weeks ago. We ask you to be understandable that it's 5:30 to 7 p.m. We do have a council meeting at 7 p.m. and this is going to be a cutoff time of 7 p.m. I'm sorry. First come. Yes, one of the things also people have asked, it should only be Hartford residents who speak. We have no such rules in the City of Hartford, neither our charter, nor our council rule. It will be first come, first serve, as anyone who signed up this evening here starting at 5. Am I missing any other rule? Cutoff time. So between now and 6 o'clock, anyone is allowed to sign up. At 6 o'clock, we'll cut off. So we are trying to make sure that we try to get as many people to speak, 3 minutes time, and be finished by 7 p.m.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
Can we just remind folks too when they speak to tell us if they're a resident or not?
One of the things we have, and we had a sign-up sheet. I believe on the sign-up sheet, it does give the person's address on the sign-up sheet. And so I really want to thank the council staff for coming up with something that's technology really happy, and that really made it very easy for everyone to sign up. I was reminded that I did not introduce my council colleagues on the dais. So starting from right, going to left, we have Councilwoman Malarizado, we have Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, we have Councilwoman Kelly Billardo, we have Assistant Majority Leader T.J. Clark, Majority Leader Marilyn Rossetti. My name is Shirley Surgeon, I'm the Council President. And beside me to my left, we have our Corporation Counsel, Attorney Harding. I believe maybe the Town Clerk was here? Okay. Beside him, we have Town Clerk, which is an empty chair right now. Our Town Clerk is Noel McGregor. We have Councilman John Gale. We have Councilman Josh Mitchum. And we have Councilman Alex Thomas. And these are the members that makes up the Committee of a Whole, and also when we get ready for our council meeting. So let me get started. And the first person that was signed up would be Julisse Beth. Yeah, speak right there, Julisse.
It's Julizabeth.
Janice, sorry. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilman Gail.
Okay, did my time start? Or
Yes, ma'am, please go right
okay.
ahead.
My name is Julie. I'm a resident in Hartford. I'm also disabled. I'm blind, so that's why you saw me chilling right there for a while. I just wanted to give my testimony, so I'm just going to give you some statistics about disabilities in Palestine. I attended the last session. I informed you all about the statistics of disability in the occupied state of Palestine, specifically the specifically the Gaza Strip and West Bank. 115,000 disabled people living between them, with 90,000 being children. And these are all estimates before October 7th. The ages would be between 2 to 17 years old, with 47% of the 115,000 having a disability that impairs their ability to walk. The numbers do not account for the 10 plus amputations done a day on children alone without anesthesia, nor does it account for the blinding white phosphorus dropped on civilians. All of these children becoming disabled without support, in a lot of cases without family left or even a way to learn to live with this new way they've had imposed on them. Considering that the Israeli occupational forces have bombed every last hospital in Gaza, it is likely also impossible to receive the support needed to survive as a disabled person. I mention all of this because when I watch the videos of Israeli citizens blocking aid intentionally, all I can think, aside from the abhorrent, inhumane behavior, is that they are blocking someone's insulin from entering, which a few weeks ago a man did die because he was without his insulin. They are blocking vital, life-saving medical devices for the entire disabled population in Gaza, not to mention the inaccessible living conditions, as well as means of communications by dropping flyers for warning of bombardment. If hostages are a concern, would they also not be impacted by the lack of goods passing through Gaza? The death toll in Gaza is at 30,000. The number of disabled people living in Gaza before October 7th was 58,000. Imagine the death toll was only disabled people. That's 51% of the disabled population, roughly, without accounting for newly disabled people. This matters because some might not say this is genocide. There is a genocide taking place within the genocide of disabled individuals. There's a mental health crisis of 2/3 of Palestinians in Gaza being reported as struggling with depression before October 7th. Compared to now, with it likely being higher and again no resources available to them, there's reports from Doctors Without Borders that children as young as 5 report wanting to die. 5. Children are not referred to as children by media, they're referred to as young people or minors. They are children and their lives have value. I just want to know why an Israeli life seemingly means more than a Palestinian life. Why do we have to continue to be subjected to the dehumanization and demonization of only Palestinians in occupied Palestine, but in the diaspora? Prime examples of dehumanization and the call to intentionally harm Palestinian children, with a quote by Israeli Minister of Justice, Aila Bovic, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, stating they should go.
Julie, thank
I know,
you.
Sorry.
No.
Thank
You know,
you.
one of the things we encourage everybody to do is send us their testimony in writing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank
So
you.
thank you, and thank you for bringing your daughter. Next up is Z. Rubin.
Hello, Council. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Z. Rubin. I live in the west end of Hartford at 217 Beacon Street. I'm speaking today as a proud Jew representing a Hartford Jewish organizing collective in support of the resolution for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. I am here because I'm afraid. I have no shame in saying those words. As a Jew, I am afraid. I'm afraid of many things in this world, but lately my biggest fears stem from the rise of violent Jewish nationalism. I'm afraid for the lives of innocent Palestinians who have suffered under Israeli occupation for over 75 years, while I mourn the loss of 30,000 Palestinians who have been murdered since October 7th. I too mourn the loss of every Israeli citizen who has died as a direct result of their radical right-wing government. I'm afraid for the lives of Arabs and Muslims around the world as Israeli propaganda radicalizes its supporters to commit acts of vigilante violence and murder. I'm afraid for the lives of Israeli citizens who are in the streets protesting against the actions of the government that has prevented the return of the hostages. Afraid for the lives of 18-year-old Israeli political dissidents who are jailed for refusing to be conscripted by the IDF. I'm afraid for the lives of 90-year-old Holocaust survivors who have lived only to watch Israel to become the thing that they once escaped from. I'm afraid of the opportunistic uprising of neo-Nazi and white supremacist terrorist groups who feel empowered and motivated by the actions of Israel further justifying their hatred of Jewish people and Muslim people. I'm afraid of America's fervent support and funding of theocratic ethno-state that commits unspeakable acts of violence and terror. I'm afraid of my local Jewish community, including the Connecticut branches of the Jewish Federation, who have fundraised over $7 million to send to Israel. I'm afraid of my local Jewish community, who came out today to speak in favor of the perpetration of violence in Palestine. I'm afraid of my local community, who has labeled me as a bad Jew and a fake Jew. I'm afraid of my local Jewish community, who has labeled my allies as terrorist sympathizers. I'm here today because I'm a Hartford Jew, and I'm afraid of what will happen if we don't demand an immediate ceasefire and end U.S. funding of the state of Israel. I will not let my fear silence me in the face of oppression. I will not let my fear destroy my sense of empathy and humanity. I will, however, let my fear inspire me to fight against Jewish nationalism. Ceasefire now and forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to speak will be Janice Fleming Butler.
My name is Janice Fleming Butler. I live in Hartford, and I want to add to the list of fears we have tonight. I, too, am a Jewish woman. I'm a black Jewish woman, and I'm afraid we being gentrified by people who like to divide this city. I'm afraid that we have people here who only want to work on immigrant issues and not bring people together. I'm afraid that there are women in this same room who fought for Me Too and was all over Elon Musk and want to act like they don't remember that picture they seen on CNN on October 7th when that Israeli girl was standing there sodomized. I'm afraid that some of us are asking for Hartford residents, but I don't see these Hartford residents outside of the boundaries of the West End. I want it noted that the people that I'm sitting with, that the Jewish people that I'm sitting with, Josh Mitchum, when I needed to give money to the immigrant community for COVID, it is them that I called. TJ, when you helped me pass out turkeys in communities and toys in communities and help pay light bills and everything, I want you to remember it's that community that I call.
Ms. Butler,
So
Ms. Butler,
Yes.
please, I must remind you that please don't address anything to the council
council.
members. Thank you, ma'am.
Please forgive me, but it's hard not to when you work so closely with them in the community. These are communities, people in here that I never see cross the threshold of Capitol Avenue. So I define stakeholders as one who gives to the community, not one who just gentrify the community, come and live in the comfort of the West End. Let's be all the way for real about it. No empathy, no compassion. At the last council meeting, the anti-Semitic comments that came through there, that's what makes me come here today. I believe that everybody has the right to speak their piece. I don't want to see anybody, whether they're Jewish, Palestinian, whatever it is, hurt or harmed. But I'm afraid that we have become a city comfortable with dividing the people within this city. And I'm afraid that we're not teaching our children the right branches of government either. Because there are things you really can be working on that impact this city and allow these students from UConn and other places to go on and take a bus to the state capitol like the rest of our kids have to do with gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. The next speaker is Erna Alich. Hello. If you will state your address for us, please.
87 Hartford Street, Hartford, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eda Alich, and I'm a Bosnian Muslim woman who moved to Hartford as a refugee with her parents in 2001. I have been a Hartford resident for 24 years in the Frog Hollow neighborhood and member of the Bosnian American Islamic Cultural Center. I'm asking that Hartford City Council pass a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. I'm an organizer with American Muslims for Palestine. I also come to you as a city commissioner for the Commission on Refugee and Immigrant Affairs. I also work at Trinity College. As someone who went through the Hartford Public School System, is a Hartford Promise Scholar, Fox Scholar, and then later worked at the Hartford Public Library after school English Learner Program and Hartford Promise. My careers have been oriented on giving back to my community and focusing on immigrant and education justice. However, I see 69 million of our tax dollars spent more on funding a genocide and immigrant suppression and deterrence. I think as a city, we need to say enough is enough. Our money should be put towards something that can benefit our state, especially our city, the Hartford immigrants and residents, students and children who deserve adequate and quality education, housing, and a dignified livelihood. Money that can be geared towards the flourishing of our capital city instead of the state and federal government turning their back on us. Most importantly, I come to you as a child of Bosnian genocide survivors and a great-granddaughter of a Bosnian Holocaust victim. And yes, and Holocaust victims are not only Jewish, there are Roma, Serbians, LGBTQ, and the disabled. I am standing in solidarity with my Palestinian brothers and sisters as they face forced displacement and genocide, just like my family did. I have been calling for ceasefire for the longest in the past couple of months because I know how much it would have been helpful in '93 if there was a ceasefire called in Bosnia, instead of waiting for almost 100,000 Bosnians to die. I probably would have had some family members around, and my parents wouldn't have to be refugees. The death toll in Gaza has surpassed 30,000, and many of my friends have lost family members. As I look at my parents, I see them triggered by all the memories they had to live through, and there's a never-ending grief in not only the Bosnian community, but the whole Muslim community, especially in Hartford. If you believe this is so far from us, you are mistaken. Our community members are being targeted for being Muslim, Arab, or Palestinian. Your residents are asking you if you care enough to show that you're not only standing up against hate, but supporting peace here, which directly relates to what's going on abroad. I ask you as a city to stand in solidarity and stand for the justice, knowing that the money that is funding a genocide abroad can be better use of our community here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to speak will be Amelia. And listen, I'm going to butcher people's names, so please bear with me, Amelia, okay?
Amila,
Okay. And your address, Amelia?
8 Rockingham Street, Hartford, Connecticut.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your time today. My name is Amila Besarovic, and I've been a Hartford resident for 7 years. Today, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, but I'm here representing my people. My heart breaks for the people of Palestine. Although I was not old enough to experience the genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I've heard horror stories from my loved ones. I wear this flower close to my heart alongside with the Palestinian flag. I am calling Hartford to pass a permanent ceasefire resolution. The Bosnian community has been a part of the Hartford community for the past 25 years. This city helped our people and provided a safe space for us. I know this city can stand on the right side of history and stand for justice. A ceasefire is critical to peace. While nothing can bring back the 10,000 innocent lives that were killed in Bosnia and Herzegovina, what was essential for our community is and was justice. Never forgive, never forget. While nothing can bring back the 30,000 innocent lives that were killed in Palestine, a permanent ceasefire is essential to stopping more innocent lives lost. Once again, I am here standing with my brothers and sisters of Palestine to ask Hartford to pass a permanent ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Turn on my thing. Next up to speak is Gail Temkin. Gail Temkin. There you go, Gail.
Thank you. What we have seen in the aftermath of October 7th is appalling silence and
all right.
indifference and cowardice from people and institutions that may have previously been admired.
I'll ask her
If
for
we
the
as a
address.
society cannot bring ourselves to condemn the horrific murder of innocents with moral clarity, then we should ask ourselves, what are we doing as a moral society? What does that reveal about the depth of anti-Semitism? My father suffered through some terrible atrocities during the Holocaust. His parents were murdered, and he was scarred for life. He devoted his life to fulfilling the promise of never again for all future victims, and never again happened on October 7th. Calling for an immediate ceasefire, in effect, excuses the indiscriminate rape, murder, and torture of innocent Israelis, Jewish and not Jewish. The barbarity of the crimes committed on October 7th are too graphic and disturbing to describe in detail. My cousin, R.A. Ziering, was one of the first murdered on October 7th. His parents now live day in, day out, knowing that their baby was murdered, trying to defend innocent people. They buried him next to his grandfather, who was also a Holocaust survivor. As sad as this makes me to say right now, thank God my father's not alive today to watch what's happening in Israel.
Great. Gail, just, I apologize. I should have asked for your address when you came up and gave your name.
Sure. 14 Northridge Drive, West Hartford, Connecticut.
Thank you, Gail. Next up will be Jill. Jill, D-U-Y-I-T-S-K-Y. There you go. And your name and the address, Jill.
Sure. Thank you, council members. My name is Jill Delitsky. I live at 4 Borough Drive, West Hartford, Connecticut. I am the board chair of the Jewish Federation. I am the board chair of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford. I've been a bridge builder my whole life, and I believe that's the role of local community and government. We should be coming together to solve local problems. My hand is extended to everyone in this room, everyone, to reach across our differences, talk, get to know each other, and create structural, lasting local change. Emotions are high on both sides of the war, and I mourn the loss of innocent life in Israel and in Gaza. This resolution, though, will do nothing for Gaza and nothing for Israel. Its only impact will be to further divide us. Our local Jewish community is scared. Anti-Semitic acts are up 400% in Connecticut since October 7th. While criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic, making genocidal calls like from the river to the sea, Gaza will be free, is inherently anti-Semitic. Where do the 10 million Jewish people go? I was just in Israel. What happened on October 7th was a massacre of civilians by terrorists, full stop. It was the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and the Jewish population today still hasn't recovered to pre-Holocaust numbers. We make up 0.2% of the world's population, and yet today, in 2024, we withstand the most religious-based hate crimes recorded. We were in Kfar Aza in Israel, where about 55 people were massacred and over 15 taken hostages, 4 still not returned 130 plus days later. I am traumatized by what I saw. It looked like a movie set from a horror film. The terrorists purposefully attacked the youth village where civilian young adults lived. Everyone in Israel is traumatized. The despair knows no boundaries. From the 25-year-old guy I met who fought off terrorists in his village for 8 hours and lost his best friend while his pregnant wife and 2-year-old were hiding in a safe room, to the Holocaust survivor going through this again. I am the mom of an 18-year-old daughter. If my daughter was stolen from me by a terrorist, held hostage for over 130 days, and raped day after day, you better believe that I would expect the US government to do everything in its power to bring her home. What did Hamas expect? How is the world surprised? We cannot forget that on October 6th, there was a ceasefire with Hamas. I often dream of an October 8th, different from the one we experienced. I just imagine if the UN and the Red Cross stood up for the hostages, and if the pro-Palestinian movement stood up for the hostages, if the liberal causes I have supported my whole life stood up for the hostages, if the world said, Hamas, you crossed a line, where would we be today?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Next up, we have David Warren. And state your address for us, David.
Sure, thank you. David Warren, 29 Stoneham Drive, West Hartford. Thank you for holding this hearing. I'm the president and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford. By now, after dozens of speakers at your last hearing and tonight, there's probably not a talking point on both sides that you haven't heard. The proponents of this resolution and those in opposition are clearly motivated by deeply held beliefs and common concern about the sanctity of life. What has happened and is happening in Gaza and in Israel is a tragedy for all. That said, I want to summarize 5 reasons why I urge you to reject this resolution. 1, Israel is doing what any country, including the U.S., would have to do if it was attacked by a neighbor with genocidal intent and genocidal actions. Hamas, in line with its founding charter, purposefully murdered and injured thousands in the most sadistic ways. The number killed in Israel on a per capita basis would be the equivalent of over 40,000 Americans, and Hamas promises to do it again and again. Just as the U.S. had to defeat Nazi Germany, just as the U.S. had to defeat ISIS, Israel has no choice but to defeat Hamas. 2, Israel consistently strives to minimize civilian casualties while Hamas invites them. Listen to the words of President Biden's National Security Advisor, John Kirby, commenting on Israel's practice of warning Gazans before its operations and providing escape routes. Quote, "That's basically telegraphing your punches. There are very few modern militaries in the world that would do that. I don't know that we would do that." 3, this resolution places the burden for ending this war and its human suffering on the wrong party. It would end immediately if Hamas laid down its arms and released the hostages. 4, at a time when our nation is polarized, with bigotry and extremism on the rise, now is the time for all of us, including our elected leaders, to help bring us together. These kinds of resolutions on such complicated, conflicting topics are only pulling our community further apart. And this resolution will only tarnish Hartford's reputation here and across the country. Finally, there are important, critically important local issues that I know you are all committed to addressing. Urgent issues of economic inequality and injustice, housing, budgets, crime, and so much more. We cannot afford to be distracted from these critical local issues, and we should all be working together with you to address them. I urge you to reject the proposed resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. And I'm just going to ask everyone again, there's lots of people outside which have been lined up to speak. So if you finish speaking, if you could leave so someone else could come in. So the fire marshal won't close us down, because our maximum capacity is 49 in the chambers. Next up to speak is Sam Pudlin.
Hi.
Nice.
Oh my God. My name is Sam. I'm a Jewish resident of Congress Street here in Hartford. We picked a really nice day for friends from out of town, didn't we? So I was really ashamed 2 weeks ago on that Zoom call to hear over and over again the literal blood libel that American Jews are falling in line behind Israel's outrageous crimes and their genocide of the Palestinian people. The reality is that 99% of Hartford's Jews are united behind this. Our community has come together like not in recent decades, because we are all in favor of an immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza and a total Israeli withdrawal from Palestine. I think a lot of the people who don't understand why this is so important to Hartford's Jews have this strange idea that this is some kind of global, international issue about things happening in other countries. That's not the case. Almost $10 million of money from Hartford taxpayers has been taken out of our city and sent over there. The money that should be keeping our streets safe is turning someone else's street into a living hell. The money that should be taking the toxic mold out of our schools is being used to burn someone else's school down. We need to bring our money home. We need you to stand behind your Jewish constituents and vote in favor of the ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to speak is Angela. Angela?
Thank you. My name is Angela Epstein. I am a resident. I'm here today as a woman as a family who lived in Hartford for 15 years and voted in Hartford for 15 years. I'm here also as a mother, as a sister. So I have seen that all this Palestinian-Israeli conflict has become a political agenda for many politicians. I come from a country, Colombia, that has seen war, and our war became a political agenda, and whoever screamed the most was the one who won, that political agenda prevented us from moving forward and allowed the terrorists in Colombia to take over and commit all type of massacres and crimes. I'm going to come back to Hartford. Hartford has 28% of the residents live under the poverty line. What a shame. Weekly shootings, drug-infested communities, lack of education options. Where do we live? I thought this was America. People are desperate for food in Hartford. Incredible. I would like to find out why are we dedicating time and resources today? And I believe, unfortunately, your minds are made up, but why are we concentrating on this, our time, instead of resolving the problems that we have in Hartford? When I ask myself, what is a politician getting from things like this? We vote for you, and that's what you get in when we vote for you. You get elected. What is behind all this? I don't understand. Perhaps my mind is very small. My education is not as good as yours, probably, but something tells me that something is behind this, larger than what we know. What is motivating this council to create this waste of time, in my opinion? And who is supporting you? What is behind this? To the human being here, to the mothers, to the men, to the sisters, all those who actually brought children with you, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Please, imagine your sister and your mother being raped, so raped that the pelvis is destroyed. Imagine your 15-year-old son or your 7-year-old son being cut off to pieces. If that's what you're voting for, I have to say, what a shame. To the men here, is your hate for Jews so bad that you're willing to allow rape to become a weapon? I come from a country where rape was a weapon. I come from a country where rape started as a weapon in indigenous communities, and I worked for those communities. You know what happened? It is spread out all over the country, and it was not the indigenous people anymore. It was every single woman who was raped. If we are going to vote for resolutions that allow those practices,
Angela, thank you.
What a shame on you.
Thank you so very much. The next person to speak is Benjamin Zayon. And again, I apologize if I mess up everyone's name. Okay, thank you, Benjamin.
Good afternoon. My name is Benjamin Zayon. I live in Bloomfield, 11 Stratford Park. I think you can guess by my accent that I'm a native Israeli. I've been living here, however, for many years. I'm a retired Assistant Attorney General. I practiced law for 33 years, representing the state of Connecticut in juvenile matters. And I sent an email that I hope that my limited technological skills prevailed and you received it, so I don't have to repeat what's there. But I want to talk briefly about something that really shocked me, and that's the eruption of anti-Semitism in this country. I thought America is historically, a new experiment where everybody is an immigrant or son of an immigrant and started on equal footing. And therefore, all the hatred and the bigotry from the old world haven't come here. I wasn't naive. I knew that there is anti-Semitism. But to this scale that we've seen since October 7th is really mind-boggling. Posters of the hostages were ripped off in this country, in Europe too, but I anticipated that would be in Europe. But here, while posters of lost dogs are still staying on lampposts, that's a shame. I want to talk, therefore, about the plight of the hostages. The resolution that attempts to be equal, fair, and balanced is not such, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say that. When you put in your resolution that you call for release of all captives, including Palestinian political prisoners, you create a moral equivalency that is not there. They're not political prisoners in Israel, and these are people, civilians who were ripped off in the pajamas in the early morning and taken to Gaza, and they're there for 142 days. And if I had more time, I could give you examples of some people that I actually know that are there.
Thank you, Benjamin. Next up to speak is going to be Rosa May Kayanis. Hello? No, we will not have that. Next up to speak is Rosa May Kayanis.
Council, are we sure she's
I'm not sure if she's
in
here.
the room? I think
Let's see if she's outside, because I know
yeah.
a lot of people are outside and can't hear their names. So let's move on and then we can come back to Rosa May. The next person is Elena Tunitsky.
Hello, my name is Elena Tunitsky. I'm a West Hartford resident, but I work in Hartford, and I see issues daily that affect the residents that I take care of in Hartford, such as crime and poverty, and I advocate for the residents on a daily basis. Unfortunately, I did not see this in return when it comes to my people. Today we're discussing this misguided and hate-ridden resolution. I want again to remind you that there was a ceasefire on October 6th, and not only that, the 75-year occupation is a complete myth, as Gaza has been completely independent since 2005, as Israel removed all its residents, including infrastructure that they left behind that was destroyed by Hamas. Gaza could have been the next Dubai, but instead, Hamas built tunnels under hospitals and schools and civilians' homes. And the reason why Palestinians are not taken care of right now, the humanitarian trucks are being delivered every day, and yet the aid is being stolen by Hamas. You don't have to listen to me. There are plenty of Palestinians who are speaking about this right now on social media. They're also tired of this terrorist behavior. On a personal note, as somebody who's been dedicated my whole life to women and advocating for women, I feel compelled to comment specifically on women in captivity. Many of you here consider yourself liberal champions of social justice and even call yourself feminists, fighting for reproductive rights and advocating for victims of domestic and sexual violence. Where are your voices speaking up for our women now? The reports of sexual assault by Hamas terrorists have been documented by the terrorists who sent the videos to the families of the victims that they were raping using victims' phones. We now have forensic evidence that's been confirmed internationally, including by UN, that some families were forced to watch women, their mothers, daughters, and sisters being raped in front of them before they were all murdered. Many may need abortions now, and all of you who call for reproductive rights in this country, where are you? There are reports that a 14-year-old hostage that has been returned already needed abortion after a gang rape. Where are you? Where is your voice for Noah Agarmani, whose mother with terminal cancer is holding on to see her daughters? Where are your voice for Agam Berger, Leary Albach, Karina Ariev, and Danielle Gilboa? whose video was sent to their families with their bloodied faces and bodies. Imagine if this is your daughter or your sister.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Thank you. Next up, we have Evelyn Chaer. And please state your address, please.
Sure. Evelyn Chaer, 31 Seymour Street. Dear council members, I am a grandchild of Holocaust survivors from Romania and Lithuania. I am a child of Soviet refugees and an 8-year-old American. I'm a Jewish mother, a wife, and a daughter. I've been a victim of anti-Semitism along with all of my children. I am pro-Israel, I'm a proud Zionist, and I'm also pro-Palestine as long as it's free from Hamas. In my 8 years as an American citizen, I've learned the blessing that it is to live in the United States. And in this amazing country, I've also seen our government grapple with balancing foreign and local affairs. I went to Israel 3.5 weeks after October 7th, and I was able to see just the pure devastation of war in Israel and Gaza, and the implications of what that means to the people there. I spoke to the families of hostages who have since learned that their children were killed in Gaza, and I met with the families whose families were brutally massacred and burned alive in their apartments. No one wants war, no one wants loss of innocent life. While I was there, we had to run from a rocket attack into a bomb shelter, while at the same time I received a call from a Hillel director of my kids' college campus to tell me about a threat that was facing at the same time. So I was dealing with anti-Semitism as well as an attack on Israel at the same moment. And there's no equivalency. You're dealing with both of them at the same time. So my ask is, this is not the place for a ceasefire resolution. That is a foreign issue. A resolution for an immediate ceasefire leaves Hamas in place without the return of the hostages. It guarantees that Hamas stays in power to commit the same terrorist attacks over and over again, the attacks against women, the attacks against civilians. Calling for immediate ceasefire excuses the indiscriminate rape, murder, torture of innocent Israelis, Jewish and not Jewish, and the barbarities of the crimes of October 7th that were promised and stated that they would happen again and again. The fastest way to end the conflict and the immense suffering in Gaza is to allow for a responsible Palestinian leadership to take control and to have the hostages be released with their arms down. Discussing governments, I have been here, like I said, 8 years as an American citizen. I've learned just how effective our government system is, municipal, state, and federal. I've been active from the day that I was sworn in and naturalized, and I've seen what makes it work. And the freedom to be able to speak up without fear of torture or death. Bringing this foreign issue to this forum does a disservice to everyone. This city council should be able to focus on local issues, on city matters, things that make it run well. I would also ask to be thoughtful in how you handle these matters.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person up is going to be Matt Shinman.
Hi.
Thank you, Matt.
Shinerman, very, very
Shinerman.
close.
Thank you.
I've heard all derivations. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Shinerman, and I grew up in West Hartford, and I've lived there most of my life. Thank you all for the opportunity to address you today. I know you've heard a lot of speakers, and I'm glad to be one of them. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Hartford Police for keeping us safe during this contentious discussion. So there's been a lot of discussion about this resolution on the table, as there should be, but I'd like to talk about, instead, maybe a more productive alternative resolution that I think everybody here can agree on for your consideration. Democracy is a foundation of our democracy, and I think it could certainly apply here. So there's a lot of positions in this recent war that I think everybody in this room can agree on. We want the war to end immediately, or at least as soon as possible. We want the suffering of the innocent Gazan civilians to end as soon as possible, right? We all want the innocent, kidnapped Israeli hostages to be returned, right? We all don't like Hamas. Nobody likes Hamas as far as I know, and we don't want to see them in control of Gaza. I don't think anyone here is actually pro-Hamas. So why don't we have a resolution passed by the Hartford City Council that calls on Hamas to surrender immediately and turn themselves over to the IDF, as well as release the Israeli hostages. If Hamas surrenders, the war will be over immediately. There will be no more suffering from the Gazans. They will get their aid. No one will die. There will be justice for the Israelis butchered and slaughtered and raped on October 7th. And the Gazan people will no longer have to live under the iron grip of a terrorist regime that doesn't represent them and clearly doesn't have their best interests at heart. The resolution on the table today does not leave room for a long-term peace. This one would. There cannot be peace as long as Hamas remains in control of Gaza. A Hamas official went on record and said that they will continue October 7th attacks over and over again until Israel is destroyed. As long as they remain in power in Gaza, there will not be peace, there will not be ceasefires. So for the sake of both Israelis and Palestinians, Hamas must go. Let's have a resolution that everyone in this room can agree on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Tavia Bander.
Hello, my name is Tivia Brander. I'm the rabbi and spiritual leader of the Young Israel, the largest Orthodox synagogue in the capital region, striving to serve the almost 30,000 Jews in this area. I stand to speak and stand in support with the scores of people in the halls and ask the members of this esteemed committee and council to reject and oppose any measure that calls for immediate ceasefire that doesn't include the unconditional surrender of Hamas terrorists and the immediate release of all the Hamas hostages. As an American, as a Jew, and as a human being, I of course abhor the loss of life, the loss of innocent life in Israel and in Gaza, Israeli or Palestinian. Like most Americans, I pray every day that the war end and that peace and safety envelop the region. And yet, for the reasons that have been articulated by so many speakers before me, we all know too well that a call for an immediate ceasefire when the conditions mentioned in the proposed resolution only guarantee that safety, security, and peace will never come to the region. Hamas is a terrorist regime. They are devoted to murdering Israelis, Jews, and Muslims, Bedouins, and Christians. They are devoted to systematically denying the rights of women, LGBTQ, religious minorities, and everyone else under their control. Their own children have been killed in working to dig the terror tunnels, the hundreds of miles of terror tunnels that have now been used to endanger their own civilians. Much have been already spoken. I'd like to elaborate on two additional dimensions. I'm deeply concerned by the rhetoric and comments surrounding the encouragement of this resolution. Statements like "from the river to the sea," or maps depicting an Israelist Middle East, or even the language of the resolution that calls for an Israel withdrawal from all of Palestine, which could be argued that means the erasure of Israel from the map, echoes and trumpets the genocidal goals of Hamas to exterminate and wipe out the sovereign state of Israel, America's greatest ally in the Middle East. And it's chants that we've heard in our own town that resistance is justified when people are occupied, that proudly push forward this resolution, that glorify rapists and murderers and those that wish to cause harm. By passing this resolution, we bolster those calls in our community, and we strengthen those who call for continued struggle as opposed for a lasting peace. Lastly, I'd like to just state that as an American Jew, it is plainly impossible to separate Judaism and Israel. It is disingenuous, and while people are entitled to their opinions, they're not entitled to their facts.
Right.
Rabbi, where are you from? You didn't say where you live.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Where do you
Your
live?
address.
I put it on the sheet, but for security and safety, I prefer not to share it in public.
Not even the town?
I'm
That's
sorry?
why I don't want to know your house address. I don't want to know what town you live in.
My synagogue is in West Hartford.
Thanks.
Okay, next up is Sylvia Gutierrez.
council members. Oh, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Sylvia Gutierrez. I live on Laurel Street in the Asylum Hill neighborhood in the city of Hartford. I have lived in Hartford for almost 40 years. Thousands of people, I'm sure you're aware, have been killed in Gaza, almost half of whom are children. Now the killing has expanded to Rafah. Furthermore, humanitarian aid is being restricted from entering Gaza, causing mass starvation and disease. You, members of the Hartford City Council, can send a clear message that you are against this inhumanity, that you are against apartheid, just as Hartford was one of the first cities to pass a resolution condemning apartheid in South Africa. Other cities around the country have already passed a ceasefire resolution. Chicago, Somerville, Mass., San Francisco, 80 more. As Connecticut's capital, we should set an example and push our state and federal government to invest in basic resources such as housing, healthcare, and education, and not used to kill innocent civilians half a world away. I stand here before you in solidarity with my Christian, Muslim, and Jewish brothers and sisters and humanity in calling for an end to this brutal policy of ethnic cleansing. And yes, in 1948, just a reminder, 750,000 Palestinians were forced out of their home. I am therefore asking you to vote for the resolution supporting an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosa May? She was outside. She didn't hear her name. So if you state your name and your address, please.
Do I have to state my whole one? I don't feel safe saying my whole one.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you resident of Hartford?
I am a resident of Hartford.
Okay.
Do I just state my name first?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry, the time's running. My name is Rosamond Quinones Alberti, and I'm a Hartford student resident at Flatbush Avenue 06106. Like a vast population of Hartford, we're displaced from origins. I'm specifically displaced from Puerto Rico, as many come to America for better educational opportunities and medical resources. I graduated in 2020, constantly moving because of house insecurities. My goal is to utilize education to enlighten others of social awareness and community building, but it seems like I'm at a standstill with the current powers that may be and the community strained of their last resources. I call upon the City Council today not to only pass a ceasefire resolution in Gaza, but to raise concern to the education hikes from preschool to higher ed. I've spoken to multiple appropriation committees to speak on my behalf, staying online until 11 p.m. to speak, and I haven't seen a single Zionist speak upon what's important to Hartford. We can start by extending the public library hours, especially on weekends, for greater accessibility to educational resources that serve as a safe space for local residents and students. I would also like to address the crime rates in Hartford, but please, as those who represent the power of education, knowledge and retention is correlated to the support provided. Those who still lack basic necessities will most likely be the next what you consider thug. These thugs aren't the issue here, council members. It is the military-industrial complex, gentrification, and inequity. I come to you today as a Puerto Rican woman of color actively oppressed by imperialism and colonialism. Some people may say just go back if it's just that bad, but I was raised here just like most Puerto Ricans in Connecticut. No one just leaves their land for no reason. Neo-colonialism brought me here. Upholding Israel as a recognized state is upholding white supremacy. Because if it's in Palestine, it's Puerto Rico. From notions about Puertotopia to Act 60, it mirrors colonization in Israel, where the Zionist real estate project settlements foreshadow buildings amongst rubble. The bombings, Viques. The sterilizations of Ethiopian women in Israel, la apresión en Puerto Rico. Yet I am blessed by the diverse and accepting community I continue to be introduced today, every day in Hartford, not in the way the council enacts it, not when my basic necessities like education and affordable housing are denied. You may be of a diverse background, but there are only...
Do you mind? I apologize. But ladies and gentlemen, please, with the flag back and forth, we really and truly would like to be respectful of everyone. And so I'm asking you guys, please, okay?
Can you extend my time then, since you interrupted me?
Yes, ma'am, I had to make sure everyone
It was at 30
understood that.
seconds.
So how many You got
Okay.
30 seconds. Go ahead.
I continue to be introduced every day in Hartford, not in the way council enacts it, not when my basic necessities like education and affordable housing are denied. You may be of a diverse background, but are only wanted for your predispositions, not the diverse thought. Aaron Bushnell had set himself on fire yesterday, not for mental illness, but moral anger and an outcry for a free Palestine. And despite all that, a cop pointed a gun at him in the midst of him burning, while the EMT yelled, "I need a fire extinguisher, not a gun." This is a metaphor for Hartford today. From Hartford to Puerto Rico to Palestine, we are catching fire, and you can either wield your gun or the extinguisher. Please consider this resolution gravely.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you. Next up, we have Q Wright.
Q Wright, 535 Hillside Avenue, Hartford. City Council, in the midst of conflict and chaos, I stand before you to plead for an immediate ceasefire. As a new resident of Hartford, I would say that I'm appalled. What a welcome. I'm passionate about this as I have very close friends in Palestine and from Palestine who have lost so many, if not everything. You hear that? They lost so many family members, their hearts no longer beats. 24,100 Palestinians have been killed. Let me repeat that number one more time. 24,100 Palestinians have been killed. Too many lives have been lost, too many families have been torn apart. We cannot bomb our way to peace. It's time to lay down our weapons. Let us cease the violence, not for the sake of sides, but for the sake of humanity. I'm convinced we all don't have the same social media at this point. Together, we can build bridges of understanding and pave the way for a future where conflicts are resolved through words, not a war, not a genocide. I'm asking Hartford to let this ceasefire be the first step towards healing our wounds and forging a path to a lasting peace. Thank you.
Next up, Mr. I think it's, I'm not sure if Mr. or Miss, Bulaong, and the last name is Ramiz.
I could be a Mr. in the patriarchy if it gives me more respect. My name is Bulaong Ramiz. I use she, her pronouns. Where to begin? One, this is a Hartford issue because Hartford is a city, 31 Woodland Street. Hartford is a city of refugees, of immigrants, of people who have legacy of enslavement in this country. This is our issue because this is our people. I had the great privilege of giving birth to my daughter here in Hartford at home, where she continues to be raised as a fourth-generation Hartford kiddo. My choice to birth here at home in Hartford was a privilege, one that many women do not have currently in Gaza. This freedom of choice of where to birth and how and where to die. I watched my grandmother die here in Hartford as a migrant from Puerto Rico who moved here and lived in Stowe Village in the 70s. It is a great privilege to be able to decide when and where to die and when and where to give birth. I am a birth doula here in this city and in this state. I care about reproductive justice and reproductive freedom. The women of Gaza are experiencing miscarriages at 300%. Newborn babies are dying from starvation because there is not formula being sent into Gaza. Their humanitarian aid is being blocked. What does this have to do with Hartford? It's everything. We are funding this crime against humanity, this war on women and children. Our tax dollars are being used in an attack fueled by propaganda and lies, rooted in anti-Muslim, anti-Black, anti-Arab, and anti-Palestinian sentiment. Please listen to how they talk about our communities, how they talk about how drug-infested, how violent our communities are. They think they're doing us a favor by giving us toys at a drive and giving us donations and money. We got us here in Hartford. We don't need West Hartford residents coming in here and telling our city council how to move and what to do. We are advocates for peace. I chose to raise my daughter here in this city because I believe that this is a place that would fight for her life to live, that would fight for her life, that would fight for the right for all of our children to live in peace and to fight for a place where our elders can grow old and die with dignity. This city is a sanctuary for many globally marginalized communities, and we need to add our name to the cities and towns that have been courageous and steadfast in their call for a ceasefire. We should do this and fight for money to be funneled into our neighborhoods, our libraries, our healthcare systems, our veteran services, art initiatives, educations. We can hold the nuance and the complexity that we can speak on foreign issues and also care about our communities. It is both and, not either or. Prove me right, please. Show me that raising my daughter here in Hartford, remaining in this city after 4 generations, was the right choice. Vote yes on this resolution, because in Hartford we believe in life, preserving life and peace.
Thank you so very much. Next up, we have Melena Roger Burson.
Hello, I'm a Hartford resident. I'm also a Jewish resident, and I support this resolution for a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Gaza. I have also traveled to Israel, Palestine, and I've also have Israeli and Palestinian friends, so this affects me deeply, as well as being a Hartford resident who has worked in the public schools and being upset by the lack of funding for our public schools, housing, and basic needs, while federal funding goes to Israel to kill Palestinians. I am also the co-founder and organizer for Hartford Jewish Organizing Collective, a group of Greater Hartford Jews, majority from the city of Hartford, who have been organizing for a ceasefire and who are committed to the liberation of Palestinians and Jews. We were and are horrified by the mass murder, displacement, starvation, and dehumanization of Palestinians. We are committed to doing everything we can to stop the genocidal policies that have led to over 30,000 Palestinians killed, 1/3 of whom are children. As we organize political actions like reading letters outside of Senator Murphy's office and ritual spaces like a Hanukkah celebration with almost 50 people, more and more Jews in Hartford have contacted us with the intention of getting involved. Our Tu B'Shvat Seder, which was a celebration of the trees, which included ritual around Palestinian liberation, had over 40 attendees. One person in attendance said there were more people at this ritual than he had seen at similar events in Los Angeles. We have so many emails and phone calls from Hartford Jews who live in Hartford, that we cannot meet with everyone. It is clear that Jews in Hartford are not okay with Israel's genocidal policies and actions and the state's ongoing occupation and apartheid system. As Jewish residents of Hartford, we want our city government to represent us. My Jewish family taught me about social justice and that every single life is precious. My Jewish family raised me to be anti-war. It is so tragic to hear about violence carried out in our name. Hartford has an opportunity to support all of its residents. 80% of Democrats nationwide support a ceasefire. Military occupation and aggression in Palestine is only adding to lack of safety. For example, the Palestinian student who goes to Trinity who was shot in Vermont. This continues to affect our Hartford community. In 1980 and again in 1992, Hartford passed resolutions against South African apartheid. We can continue to be a leader for justice. We have an opportunity now to take action on the local level to prevent further loss of life, as our federal and state legislators have failed to hear our demands for over 4 months. Their silence and inaction has led us to this point where all people living in Gaza are at risk of starvation and all areas of Gaza are being bombed. Please use your power to pass a resolution for a permanent and immediate ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Julia Rosenblatt.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you for hearing us all. My name is Julia Rosenblatt. I live at 68 Scarborough Street in Hartford. I am a Jew, I am a Hartford resident, and I am here to support this resolution fully. I'm quite emotional.
That's okay.
I just want to bring up a couple of things. First of all, those of you in this room, in this building, who are not Jewish, please don't give in to this idea that caring about Palestinian lives is anti-Semitic. That is outrageous and ridiculous. Caring about Palestine is not anti-Semitic. So don't let that bully you. The Jewish Federation is here tonight. They did a lot of organizing. And in their talking points, they are saying basically, we don't want to focus on the numbers. We don't want to focus on the specificity of how many are being killed. We want to focus on the broader issues, okay? Because they don't want us to focus on the over 30,000 people dead in Gaza and in Palestine. They don't want us to focus on the fact that that is almost a quarter of our city's population. They don't want us to focus on the fact that 1.7 million Palestinians are out of their homes, and that in and of itself is a half of Connecticut's population. They don't want to focus on these numbers, except maybe 134, right? Which is those that were our hostages that were on October 7th. I mourn their lives, and I mourn the 30,000 people, including and where half of them are children. This is not a war. This is genocide. The Jewish Federation talking points would like us to say that we don't want to use that word genocide because that language hurts them. I would have to say that I care more about the lives lost than the feelings of some Jews here about all of those lives lost. I also heard someone tonight who was organized by the Jewish Federation come and say they feel like they're living in Nazi Germany here. So let's look at who can say that, right? A Jew living in the US or a Palestinian living in Gaza? The city owes it to all of us to put our funds into our community and not to fund genocide.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we're going to be Joseph Condren. Joseph.
All right. Appreciate y'all. I don't want to be here tonight. I'm not a public speaker. Some of you all, I hope, recognize me from being in the city. I'm from Hartford. I grew up here, went to Hartford Public Schools. I work for the Recreation Department, work in the school system, and I'm here to support a resolution for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. I think a lot of folks have said it better than I will. I'm going to share a little bit of historic context to talk about why it's important. I can sympathize with you all. There's lots of stuff I would like to see this chamber dealing with. And tonight I was planning to talk about the Recreation Department, but I was told that tonight we're focusing on the resolution. And so this is important, and the reason why the Federation was organized so well to be here is because they know the importance and the power of pushing this forward and approving this resolution. They know that showing the will of the people will move our federal legislatures, will move our federal government to act in a way that they're blocking action of the global majority. The folks who want to see action in Gaza now, the US is standing in front of that. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, at the end of the Six-Day War, the UN called a ceasefire and end that conflict. In the Yom Kippur War of 1972, the UN called for a ceasefire, and after support and urging from the US, Israel complied. And those were against neighbors in the region that are now friendly. Egypt and Jordan, to be specific. In 1981, which a conflict that is similar to today's, or I think I see a lot of similarities, Israel invaded Lebanon, their neighbor to the north, in order to locate and weaken the PLO, Palestinians who had fled, who had been pushed out of Israel, and who were a militarized organization who were fighting for the liberation of the Palestinian people. and Israel pushed into Lebanon. They got to Beirut, thousands of people died, and they may have succeeded in eliminating the PLO threat at that time. And Hezbollah, a name you should recognize today, replaced that vacuum. And so I think we can see the similarities there. Thank you for my time.
Next up, David C. Sinnerman.
Yeah, my name is David Shinman. I'm the resident. Shinman, and that was my son, by the way, who I'm very proud of.
Oh, okay.
I live in West Hartford. I am an active volunteer in the city of Hartford. My wife and I get involved in helping families in Hartford. She does early intervention. We both help in Habitat for Humanity and other volunteer services here. I do have very strong feelings about the Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, the horrific ongoing hostage situation, and the overall conflict. But I strongly feel that is not a topic that is appropriate for the Hartford City Council to be discussing and passing a resolution on. There are many issues in our country and in the world where there are issues to be concerned about, but I don't see how the Hartford City Council has a role in solving all these issues. To me, the needs in Hartford is what our focus should be on, whether it be our social services, the current housing situation, mental health needs, public safety, and so forth. The list is too long. I do see real progress on these fronts. I see it firsthand, and yet there's so much more to be done. All of your time is valuable. Use it to improve this corner of the world. Not get involved where we don't belong, where we don't have all the facts, and where our involvement will only cause strife in our local community. I urge you to table this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Phil Brer. Phil Brer. Okay, let's move on. We have Eamon Ornset.
Good evening. My name is Eamon Ormseth. I live in Hartford. I would urge the City Council to listen to the voices of the residents of Hartford tonight, which have been overwhelmingly in support of this resolution. As an interfaith peace builder, I've organized dialogues between Christians, Muslims, and Jews, worked with the refugee community, and learned to speak Arabic. I have worked for housing justice here in Hartford for several years, and I'm here to ask the City Council to pass the resolution introduced by Councilor Mitchum and work for an immediate and just ceasefire in Israel and Palestine. I lived in Palestine for a year in Bethlehem with the Palestinian Christian community, so I have many dear friends there affected by the ongoing violence. A friend of a friend was executed by the Israeli army a few months ago. Two of my friend's family members are sheltering in a Catholic church in Gaza in which Israeli snipers killed 2. And other friends were killed when the Israeli Air Force bombed the Orthodox Church in Gaza. I want to tell a short story. In 2018, in the spring, I joined a group of hikers on a warm, sunny day to hike through part of the rugged landscape of the West Bank. Our guide, a spry Palestinian man, guides us through an ancient dry valley, or wadi. He teaches me the Arabic names for lizard as the sun bears down on our sweaty backs. We're all thoroughly enjoying the hike and looking forward to the sumptuous feast. I would appreciate if the council members looked at me while I'm speaking. And, excuse me? All right, well, I'm sorry, I just do not feel very respected. We're all thoroughly enjoying the hike. Just one obstacle remains. We have to walk along a road used by Israeli settlers. As we approach the road, I feel a lump in my stomach. We are on the road for just a few minutes when an Israeli jeep comes up and several soldiers jump out. The largest of them, a commander, marches over to our guide, towering over him and interrogating him in Hebrew about the purpose of our hike. Our guide, speaking in Hebrew, a second language for him, parries his questions, while the commander, towering over him with his submachine gun, yells at him, "Do you want peace?" I have never seen something so absurd in my life. I am stupefied. Our guide says, "Yes, of course I want peace." There's a gun in my face. Over heaping plates of hummus, lentils, and flatbread. We learn that the couple's son who is hosting us has been in prison for several years for throwing stones and of the settlement encroaching on their lands and livelihoods. I shared this story with you all because you will undoubtedly hear over the coming weeks about how though the situation is tragic, we are powerless to stop it, and it is too complex to do so, about how though people want you to take action right now, it's too complex, about how though Israel's violence keeps escalating, it will somehow bring peace. As you sort through your thoughts and emotions, I urge you to use my story as a metaphor, a traumatized soldier pointing his gun at a defenseless civilian and demanding peace. The side with most of the guns and the bombs and the takes has openly declared its intentions to bomb the most densely populated place on earth and the last remaining place of refuge. 1.5 million people are being bombed by U.S. weapons as I speak. Several hundred Palestinians die every day. Ceasefire now.
Okay, thank you. Next person up would be Carrie Ann Provost. Carrie Ann Provost. Maybe she's outside. We'll go on. Maybe Stephen Tatum.
Good evening.
Stephen, good evening.
My name is Stephen Tatum. I'm a resident of 32 Ashley Street in Hartford. Thank you, Council, for your attention to this important matter. Emotions are obviously high on this issue on both sides, which makes your job of deciding whether to support this resolution difficult. Thank you as well for holding space to hear the concerns of your constituents. I'd like to highlight just a couple aspects of the resolution itself, kind of stepping aside for a moment from some of the bigger scale emotional issues at hand. First of all, the resolution acknowledges the atrocities of the Hamas attack on October 7th. Calling for a ceasefire in no way condones that act of terrorism. The resolution further acknowledges the hostages and political prisoners held by both Israel and Hamas. So the idea that passing this resolution in some way is giving a pass to any of those things or taking a side on this conflict in that way doesn't hold up to the text of the resolution itself. It's obvious that the city of Hartford does not set federal or international policy, but in the face of a federal government that is out of touch with the majority of the citizens on this issue and is unresponsive to demands to change, it is meaningful for the city and town governments to take a stand and represent their constituents. We are already implicated in this conflict through the U.S. military-industrial complex and various levels of state and private support for military intervention happening in Gaza right now. So the idea that we are somehow disconnected from that is not seeing the reality of a globalized economic system. I believe that's all I have to say. I could go on for more, but I'll yield my time.
Correct.
Please pass the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Carrie Ann must have just walked in. There you go, Carrie Ann. I know, we have a speaker outside.
Hi, my name is Cariana Provost. I own and live at 19 Mortson Street in the beautiful Frog Hollow neighborhood. If you do not know me, I question if you live in Hartford. I've sent you my New Year's newsletter, Marilyn. Josh, I've been at your Passover Seder. John, I've argued with you on my front porch about policing. In arm's reach of my mezuzah, it might be one of the only mezuzahs on a doorpost on my street, but I am not by any means the only Jew in Hartford proper. While serving on the board of the Jewish Historical Society of Greater Hartford, I led several sold-out history tours in the cemeteries along Tower Avenue and within Zion Hill. One of the highlights was the Deborah Chapel that was sadly demolished last year, what we call demolition by neglect. I volunteered with the Frog Hollow NRZ and Friends of Zion Hill Cemetery, helping to clean up and beautify the cemetery 3 blocks from my house. We have apple trees, blueberry bushes, and flower and vegetable gardens there now. Many have participated in creating them because Hartford has a culture of care. I am car-free, and I tell you this because going to work, the store, to City Hall requires that I walk or ride the bus, and this puts me in direct, frequent contact with my neighbors, with my beloved community who include Muslims, Hindus, pagans, Christians, Buddhists, and yes, other Hartford Jews. As a proud Hartford Jew, I do not move through this world fearing or hating the stranger. I have sympathy for those with unresolved trauma that convinces them that they are perpetual victims. Their hurt breaks my heart. I speak here of those who participate in revenge killings, whether with ghost guns on our streets or with rockets in Israel-Palestine. Violence is violence, and we know that when those who are hurting hurt others, we are all made less safe. My neighbors, I have sent you all written testimony. I have published an op-ed in the Hartford News. I have written extensively about this issue on realhartford.org. Please read any of those things. I ask that you show consistency in who we are in Hartford by supporting the ceasefire resolution, because ending violence abroad helps to end violence here in Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you. I know I had called a Joshua Gottfried. Is he here?
Good evening. My name is Josh Gottfried. I live on Terry Road with my wife and 3 children. I've lived in Hartford for 20 of the past 25 years. I appreciate that. My wife wouldn't have done that for me, so thank you. Human life is precious. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, atheists, all life is sacred. And I believe you're trying to save lives with this proclamation. If you'd be kind enough for just a second to close your eyes, please just allow me a minute. Imagine gunpowder scents the air as you're awoken by the rat-tat-tat of automatic rifles. Yells come from your neighbor's house as you hear a loud rev of a motorcycle engine. Your door is kicked in and somebody enters your house. A burning smell is in both of your nostrils. Your children scream. That was October 7th. I assume you, like me, chills went through you as I recount that. But here's the hard question. What would you do if your son or daughter came back home and he told you he was part of the raping? She told you she was part of taking hostages. Or he told you he was part of the slaughtering of over 1,000 people. How would you feel if that was your son or daughter? My guess is it would not be your proudest moment. You may even turn them into the authorities, because in Hartford, in Connecticut, in the US, we have a rule of law and believe in justice. In the West Bank, hostage takers were cheered. In Gaza, they were celebrated. Would someone who was praised for raping or killing or kidnapping Israelis really accept a ceasefire with Israel? In my experience, conflicts can be solved with conversations, not proclamations. When I cast a vote for each of you this past November, it wasn't for your international relations acumen. I voted for each of you for your intimate knowledge of the city of Hartford, and my hope in you, in each of you, to continue the good work to make our city better. Please, let's focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person up is Sasha Kaufman.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is Sasha Kaufman, and I'm a West Hartford resident on Troutbrook Drive. And I wanted to make sure, given that there are so many West Hartford residents, that there was at least one that came up in support of the ceasefire resolution. I would say that after October 7th, it was the first time I was ever scared to have a Jewish-sounding last name. However, as the weeks and months passed, I realized that my fears don't outweigh people who are literally losing everything. Children who are being starved. That my safety and Palestinian safety are connected. And I cannot forget how the videos I've seen being done in my name, I just can't. I can't stand by. And to answer those who don't think this is a local issue, there's a saying I've always appreciated: act locally but think globally. As the capital of Connecticut, we're sending a message to our reps, our senators, and even the president that this is important to us. And this does impact people in the community, people who have relatives and loved ones in Palestine and have lost members who live here in Hartford. In conclusion, I'll say that I realized that there was a schism within Judaism shortly after October 7th. It was on the saying, never again. Some people thought it meant never again for Jewish people, and some people thought that never again meant for anybody. And that's where I stand. So I encourage the council to pass this ceasefire resolution, and I thank you for your time.
The next person is Kazmin Malik. And could you state your address, please?
I'm speaking on behalf of Bintu Monserrat. She is a Hartford resident, 56 Maple Avenue. Hello, my name is Bintu Monserrat. I'm African American from Sierra Leone, and I moved to the US in 2021. I live on 56 Maple Avenue in Hartford, and I'm an 11th grader at Buckley and also a member of the Hartford Youth Advisory Board. I'm requesting that the Hartford City Council passes a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. I wouldn't say I've faced a bit of the tremendous pains and struggles the people of Palestine have been experiencing since 1948 until now. Over 30,000 Palestinians, including more than 10,000 children, have been killed, accompanied by the support and funding of the United States. Tax dollars are paid by families who count on their children gaining a quality education, but no. Instead, their money is being used to fund a genocide. My family came from Sierra Leone, so we have proper quality education here, yet the highest math class we have at Buckley is pre-calculus. Money that could be going to more guidance counselors and teachers is going to destroying schools in Gaza. Money that can be used to invest in care for our communities, like housing, education, and healthcare, not killing. Hartford, as a capital state, should be a leader in this course of calling for a ceasefire. It's worrying how the majority in my school and other schools in Hartford have no awareness of what is going on with this war, let alone the impact of this genocide that the United States is funding. I mean, it makes sense since we are not even properly taught about the genocide of indigenous peoples in America either. This idea that Hartford cannot act in any way to help stop the genocide happening in Gaza right now is bizarre. Is Hartford not one of the first cities to have passed a resolution condemning apartheid in South Africa? A call for a ceasefire is a need that is sensibly and morally right, and this can serve as a guide for the youth in Hartford to learn and educate themselves to be advocates for human rights. We as Hartford Youth residents are requesting you care enough to show support in voting for a resolution supporting an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. It's 7 o'clock and we are at the top of the hour. We were supposed to finish. You're going to get one or two more people. We're going to get as many people as we can. Can't only get in one or two more people because we have to go to our council meeting. I think, where am I? Christopher Brown and then Alex M. I'm sorry? We have a sign-up sheet, which is by the minute. And so, we started at 5:30. We said we're going to be finished by 7. We have city council business to do. It's 7 o'clock. I'm allowing one or two more people to go until about 7:15. But it's as many as we can fit in. We have the electronic sign-up sheet and the time the person signed up. So the more we talk, the less any time the rest of the two people. Okay. We have council comment once a month. The first council meeting of each month from 6 until 7. Yes. So I'm sorry. So go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Christopher Brown. I live at 121 Putnam Street in Hartford. I've lived in Hartford for over 25 years. I'm here to express my support for Councilperson Mictum's resolution in support of a ceasefire and the current onslaught of attacks on Palestinians in Gaza. My grandfather moved to New England from his native segregated North Carolina, where his grandparents had been born in slavery. My father, William J. Brown Jr., enlisted in the U.S. Navy at 18 in 1944 as part of the global fight to defeat a ruthless regime that overtly sought to eliminate an entire ethnic group. I can only imagine their dismay to hear that their country now funds an apartheid nation that is openly killing Palestinians at staggering rates. The city of Hartford rightfully condemned apartheid in South Africa in 1980. I encourage City Council and everyone in the room to read South Africa's 84-page filing in the International Court for Justice. It spells out in great detail, in direct quotes, in direct actions of Netanyahu and other top-ranking Israeli officials that are killing civilians on purpose without question. South Africa knows what's up. Holocaust survivors know what's up. Holocaust scholars know what's up. The journalists who have been attacked and killed by the IDF repeatedly know what's up. That's why they've been killing. People from the suburbs repeating, long disproven propaganda don't know what's up. Hartford has a long, shameful history of disinvestment in our communities that are repeatedly characterized as lesser, as bad, sometimes as animals. Even worse has been visited upon Gaza. And all that money that is going to kill 30,000 plus civilians could be doing good in our community and other communities in this country and elsewhere in the world. So please, I encourage you to pass this resolution, including the wording about divestment, and have a great night.
Great. Thank you. Just one more, Alex M. and Zach A., and that will be it for the evening. Alex M. or Zachy A.?
My name is Zachy. I'm a resident of West Hartford, and I've been a student in Hartford for the past 3 years. I'm a first-gen Palestinian American demanding an immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza. I want to start off with this notion that was talked about way too much tonight, about that this doesn't have to do with Hartford. 10 million of Hartford resident tax dollars goes to the Israeli occupation every year to commit genocide. It has been 142 days since the violent aggression on my people has begun. I have no words left to say, no feelings left to feel, and I'm unable to put my thoughts into words. I know multiple people whose entire family were wiped off the Gazan civil registry, and then Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu still says that the worst has yet to come in Rafah. We've seen Gazan children's bodies mutilated, blown to pieces, and hung off of buildings by the Israeli occupation. We've seen the mass detention and execution of hundreds of innocent Gazan men and elderly by the Israeli occupation. The sexual harassment of Gazan women and stealing of personal items by the Israeli occupation. The glorification of the destruction of residential and civil buildings by the Israeli occupation. The problem is not ignorance, it is inaction. Impunity, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing will not be solved by condemnations, words of solidarity, and raised eyebrows. We Palestinians have repeatedly stated what our demands are. We demand the representatives in the city of Hartford, state and federal, work for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and divestment from companies that fund the genocidal, colonialist, racist, apartheid state Israeli occupation with millions of our tax dollars on the line. Ceasefire now. We will not be silent, and we will not stop.
Thank you all. Thank you for attending. I call the public comment to an end. That's it for me. Yeah.